Buddy. All right, it's Friday. Yesterday, we got a new pope from the United States, and he chose the name Pope Leo, which I'll always remember because, like, my favorite uncle was Uncle Leo, and he'll probably be tickled that he said the Pope named after him. I know he'll say something like that. That's funny. So, he's a registered Republican, but he has really woke ideology when it comes to the LBGTQ plus, ideology, and about open borders and that kind of stuff. But is that important? He's a statesman now, but was he a statesman before? Right? Does he set policy? No. Not for Americans. For Catholics, what's that going to mean for Catholics? Okay, so he's going to have every day when they read the homilies, or they'll read the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then a verse by letters from Paul. He's basically the interpreter of how the Old Testament ties into the New Testament. But the thing is about the new Pope is he is of the Augustine order, so follows Saint Augustine, and they who was a pagan, right? And wasn't baptized actually until right before his death, and his influence tying paganism or the faith of Baal into influencing the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, and people aren't going to like me saying that, but that's just a fact. Okay, and so when you look at, there's always been that influence. Okay, so it starts off even in early, where does that come from? That comes from twin brothers, Jacob and Esau. Okay, so Esau was bigger, old, like seconds older than Jacob, and was favored by his father because he liked to hunt and he was a manly man. And he, and his father liked that, where Jacob was more, studious and practical, I guess. And his mother liked him more. Okay, because Jacob was Esau had problems. Esau had an ego, very egotistical. Okay, and it dictated his judgment. There we go. That's the key. Okay, he was of this world. So his mom first off, Jacob, crazy. In the book of Asher, Esau's out hunting, and he stumbles on Nimrod. Now, there's like 3 or 4 Nimrods in the Bible. He doesn't distinguish that until you realize how long these people lived, right? But this Nimrod, the first Nimrod, was the one that built the Tower of Babel, okay, which was he was like a great grandson of Noah, and then so that was like long time before Jacob and Esau. Okay, and so this Nimrod, so it was just like a slang term for a king that opposed God. That's what that meant. Okay, and he sees him while he's out hunting. He's out away from his bodyguards, and Esau runs up behind him and lops his head off with a sword. Then he has to run for like 3 or 4 days. He's non-stop running away from Nimrod's army. And he finally gets home and he's famished. And he's like, and there his brother is making lentil soup. And that's where it gets in the Bible. That's the part of it that gets in the Bible. So at that time, they believed that if you killed the king, you became the king. All right. So he created the king of Edom, or the Edomites, right? And then, of course, his father went to give him the blessing, his blessing, but his father was blind, so he sent him out to kill a deer, to make a stew the way he likes it. Well, his mom heard, and she made the stew, had Jacob go out and get a lamb or a goat, and so she could make the stew out of the lamb or the goat. And then she put the lamb's hair, I guess, on the arms and shoulders of Jacob. And so when his father touched him, he felt hairy, so he figured, okay, he got to be Esau, and he gave him his blessing, right? Which caused a major rift with his brother, and he vowed to kill him. So he ran away, blah blah blah, all these years, and that's where he has 2 wives and 2 concubines and a bunch of kids, 12 kids, and comes back and faces his brother and gives him all this stuff and makes nice with him, but not really, because he's always trying, come on, you and me, let's go out and let's have fun and party, and and he's like, nah, I'm with the kids and the family, can't really do that, He was going to kill him, right? And so there was this 2 kingdoms, and that was Israel and Edom, and they went after each other. Now, in the Old Testament, the king of Persia was supposed to have wiped out the Edomites, but you find out that during the time of Jesus, somehow the Edomites were back in the picture. King Herod was an Edomite, which means he's a but when Esau killed Nimrod, he basically adopted his faith. He adopted the pagan faith, the faith of Baal. Okay? And which is, the triune God, or whatever, not the triune, but the multi-gods, a bunch of gods, right? There are a whole bunch of them fighting against each other, right? And like the Romans and the Greeks. Okay, that's basically the faith of Baal, right? And so he followed their traditions and their pagan rituals. And so now here we are during the time of Christ. You've got the king of Judah, or Israel, whatever, is an Edomite. King Herod's an Edomite. And the high priest of Israel, Caiaphas, is an Edomite. And guess what? Judah, the guy that betrayed Christ, was an Edomite. What about that? How about that, huh? Okay. So then, see, what Christ did is he was trying to bring the true word, okay, the real meanings of the Gospels, or the Scriptures, or the faith, okay, and it had been hijacked by the pagans, or the faith of Baal, through the leadership, Caiaphas, right, King Herod, and okay, now they were trying to influence this sect, which followed Jesus, right, through, one of his disciples, Judah, right? That's what's been going on. Well then, okay, so Christ is crucified, right? And the Jews were, under the Romans, and then the emperor died, and so these two generals, one of them was Constantine, right? And he was a worshiper of Apollo, pagan god, and he's got this battle against a larger army, and he looks up to the sun, prays, and he sees a red cross on the sun. So he makes all of his soldiers paint a red cross on their shields, and they won the battle. Now, here's what's going on. Christians knew how to read. Because they knew how to read and write, they took positions within the Roman Empire that needed people that could read and write. And so these people were fighting for their very lives, because if the other general and his army won, that's what they do. They execute them all. So that's what was going on. So now here's Constantine, who's victorious, but his whole army and his whole government is being under their, basically, the control of Christians, because they knew how to read and write. Okay, and so it's like, you can't beat them, join them, right? But what he did was he still had that influence of the pagan beliefs and rituals, so there's all kinds of undercurrents of that in the Bible and in Roman Catholic teaching. Okay, and this guy, this new pope, happens to be of the sect of priests that follows that deeply rooted system. There you go. And most people are just totally ignorant of all this stuff, right? What he's not teaching is what the real meaning of, like the laws, when you translate it to Hebrew, it means something totally different than what you think it means in what they call the dead letter. Just taking the text as it is in English, which is the worst translation of all of them, without really knowing the true meaning and symbolism. This is what you get. All right, and the dead letter kills. Right, when you understand what it's really meaning, when you try to translate it to Hebrew, it's all, God wants to guide us and lead us and mentor us, and He wants us to follow Him, and He wants to be in us, and wants us to be in Him, and it's all this beautiful stuff when you understand what it really means. And it's not going to be taught, all right, when you got somebody who's basically a pagan. Wow, I said that. Have a good day.